I am grateful to be one of your co-facilitators for this afternoon. But I'll pause and invite my other co-facilitator to introduce herself first.
And I'm Ashley Allen. I work with Equipped. My regular role at Equipped is the Work Environment and Compensation Coordinator, which is all things adult well-being, policies, practices, benefits, everything that adults need to be well so that children can be well. My other area of, I guess what I would just say what I'm most passionate about as an educator is social emotional well-being, behavior guidance, culturally relevant practices, identity development. So all of those pieces that really have to do with a lot of what we were talking about this morning. And I'll claim my partner in crime too.
I am Rodas Riggins Jr., and I hope that I've had an opportunity to be in most of your spaces already this morning and to touch you and feel your energy in different ways. So I'm Quality Engagement Coordinator with Equipped, along with Tammy May, our other beautiful co-worker. So Tammy are the ones and as well as Ashley who are available to come on site to be a resource and a support as you guys children learning and development every single day. So let's take a look at the conversations. Ashley and I are going to open the space simply for conversations. We did not come before you to do a presentation, all in 1 hour. And when you're looking at these conversations, you're probably saying, how in the world are they going to cover all this content in 1 hour? We're not. A lot of these conversations and information has been placed in handout format. We also have placed a QR code to the full PowerPoint. So you have access to the PowerPoint slides. They're learning. This old man has been in the field a long time to use technology. So we are hoping to open the space to take a few minutes to explore upon the characteristics of positive or healthy relationships. We're going to drill down and think about experiences when you perhaps received feedback and what that experience might have been like for you. We're going to define feedback briefly. We're going to talk about the types of feedback as well as the purpose. We're going to have an opportunity to explore what are the adults' role? What is my responsibility in providing feedback to infants and toddlers? We're going to have an opportunity to think about strategies for embedding feedback into everyday practices, because we know those opportunities exist throughout the day, and you're already doing it. You're already doing it. And then we're going to have an opportunity to lift and discover some resources to support that ongoing acquisition and knowledge around this concept of feedback. But let's first begin opening the space by engaging in an activity. It's called Visual Imagery Experience. Before you see that Ashley and I have placed cards on your table. We are going to invite you to reflect upon these questions. We want you to think about, what does a positive or healthy relationship look like to you? Drill down further. What does it feel like to you? And drill down a little further. What does it sound like? We're going to invite you to select an image that represents your perceptions or even your experience of a positive or healthy relationship. We're going to open the space, this is by invitation, for you to respond briefly, if willing and comfortable, to share with us why did you select that image and what key words or phrases does that image signifies that illustrates this positive or healthy relationship. So please take a few moments to select a card that represents a positive relationship or a healthy relationship for you. If the image that you do not want is not on your table, feel free to move around the space. Please feel free to move around the space and explore your colleagues' images as well.
And keep in mind too that just because you hear the word relationship, and we've been talking about human relationships all day, visual imagery is really about connections. Because when you say something like the word love, we might have the image of a heart come into mind. There's a lot of different photos that could represent love that don't even have humans in them. So just to stretch you a little further.
Okay. Does everyone have an image that might signify a positive or healthy relationship? Okay. And this is by invitation only. We recognize that our time is a bit limited. So we're going to open the space for anyone who is willing to share and who is comfortable to share, to reflect upon these prompts. First,
Yeah.
look, I know when to be quiet. What's your name, love?
Shamika,
That's right, Miss Shamika. Talk to us, love. Talk to us.
I chose this picture.
And what is that picture?
And to me, it's love because I think it's because it's a diversity and it's like love from two different cultures and
Yes.
sharing the space. And they're getting along like they're sharing the water, they're sharing. It's like love and sharing. And like the elephants and the zebra, it's like diversity of two cultures, sharing the same space and getting to know each other.
And we need those moments and opportunity more than ever right now, Miss
Yeah.
Shamika. Thank you. Beautiful, beautiful. Anyone else who is willing and comfortable? Look, you just walked in the room and you ready, honey. I love it.
Ready
I
to
love
go.
it.
Well, I chose this picture here because I work with the infant and toddlers, so I feel like if they start off in that classroom, it's with the roots, and then we become a tree, and to our nature.
Beautiful. And what's your name,
My
love?
name is Ashley.
Well, welcome, Miss Ashley. Thank you. The root,
Glad to
the
have you.
foundation.
Exactly.
Yes, beautiful.
I'll share. Yeah. My name is Tammy. I chose the one with the baby being fed. Much love, positive, and like she says, it's the root. The baby's getting love. I see a hand just comforting, and it just seems so peaceful.
Beautiful.
You know, very positive atmosphere.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
That nurturing.
Yeah, he's not whining or asking for anything. He's just enjoying that moment.
He's being
Yeah.
nurtured. Thank you, Miss Tammy. Thank you.
We have three more.
This picture to me shows someone at peace, at rest. That takes give, love, and take. And you have to love and take to get peace.
Reminds me of Miss Kim this morning. Sometimes you gotta pause. You gotta be. And part of that being is embracing silence, peace and rest. And what's your name, love?
Sharing.
Miss Sherry, that beautiful voice. That beautiful voice. Thank you, Miss Sharon.
We have two over here. And will you tell us your name?
Shemaine.
Shemaine.
I chose this card right here where it's a man and a child, so it could be either a mother or a teacher embracing the child and just to feel that warmth and sharing of the book or any image or whatever. It just feels warm.
Drawing on how it feels.
And you can feel that.
Tell us
I
what your
chose this picture, and the first thing I thought was my grandson. He needs a lot of space. So I chose it because it has a lot of peace. It's a safety environment, and it gives them a lot of room and space for development.
And what's your name, love?
Yolita.
Oh, say that again.
Yolita.
How you spell that? Yolita.
Yoleta.
Beautiful.
Thank you, baby.
Yolita. And so Miss Yolita brings up, oh, forgive me, we were trained never to walk and talk with our back to the audience. Forgive me. But Miss Yolita brings up that critical point of even relationships require space. 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 Thank you.
Okay, my name is Rhonda Lilly.
Hello. Well, hello, Miss Rhonda Lilly. I'm good.
When I first looked at this, when I chose this because she could look like she is afraid. You know, she looked like she's in the arms of her mother. It looks more like a woman because of her hair. But then I feel that she feels that she's looking behind her, but like I am safe because I'm in the arms of my mother. Yeah, but at first you could see some fear in her eyes. Yes. But that's
Beautiful.
what I saw it is.
You saw safety.
Safety,
You saw safety.
yes.
Wow, beautiful. And Ash, oh no, Miss Julia, please, we gotta lift your voice,
Yes.
love. Yes, ma'am. Not a thing.
Well, I chose this picture of the supermarket and because it shows me community and how many of the fruits and vegetables are categorized differently and many people shop differently.
Wow.
And then just make it a point to just communicate and just have that loving community.
You took it to the community level. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you all for your willingness to engage in this visual imagery experience. And Ashley has advanced our slides, and we're going to drill down and link this to what this means for supporting young children, our young children. And you see that many of the elements that you already have lifted are reflected on the slides. This element of safety, the knowing that despite what is occurring around them, that you will protect them to the best of your ability. This element of stability, oh my God, knowing that they can count on you to meet their needs as to the extent possible. And many of you lifted this concept of nurturing that you saw in your images as well. As you know, I also recognize that we cannot stand before you and talk about strategies for supporting healthy, positive relationship without first acknowledging that there are many factors that interfere with positive relationship. Some of these factors are reflected on the screen, but we like to ask y'all. So what are some things that may get in the way of fostering these positive interactions and relationships? From your own experience, what are some things that can interfere with building positive interactions and relationships?
False belief that we're not the same inside.
Miss Julie, would you say that a little louder, my love?
False belief that we're not all the same inside.
A
Because
false belief that we're not all the same inside.
because if you put water in different colored glasses, what color is the water?
Two snaps.
He was either doing that or like getting out his EBT card, because he does that for the real good comments. I know. I was sitting here floored trying to decide, is that a bumper sticker, a t-shirt, or a book title? All the above.
Is it safe to come back? Ashley, me, I think we can go home.
Quote of the day, that better end up on an evaluation, y'all. And please attribute it to Jill or the session in here. No, I'm just kidding. If you put water in different colored glasses, what color is the water? Mic drop. Like, that's the best moment of the afternoon, I think. We're just gonna have to stop with him. So, what she's bringing up, though, I know.
As we say in the
Sorry about
country,
that.
I ain't studying you.
Yeah, I know.
I ain't studying you, honey. That made me pat. Oh, I got a pat on that.
How do I work with him?
Ashley, man.
This is that point where it just goes conversational, y'all. I'm just saying. No. What she has raised is a really good point that perfectly ties to what we were talking about this morning. The reason I say that is because conscious discipline is this mindset that has to start here. Because if I walk in a classroom and I think my agenda is the agenda, and I'm putting my agenda out for all of the little people in the room, I'm thinking that water If you follow me here. So it starts here, because if I don't already recognize that all of that is different, how does that relate to what we talked about this morning?
And the power of humanity, seeing each other as human beings. Beautiful.
And the flip side of that is having that powerful role. Like I have student teachers sometimes too, or teach classes. I always tell people that teaching is one of the most powerful roles in any job that you could ever have. And the reason I say that is because when you walk in a classroom with me as the teacher, right? Think about these traditional relationships. I have the power to make your life miserable.
Yeah.
I'm never going to do that. But I also have the power to recognize everything that we've talked about today and do that piece of self-reflection, because it's going to take a whole lot sometimes to work past these pieces to maintain those healthy relationships. Do you have anything to add to that component?
Yeah, you see that I was always being very intentional when we're looking at those characteristics of healthy relationship. I kept using this phrase, to the extent possible, to the extent possible, keeping children safe to the extent possible. The reason why I phrased it like that was my effort to acknowledge that many of our young children may experience traumatic experiences as well, that we need to be aware of, that may cause this disruption in healthy relationships and interactions. And then also recognizing that there is structural inequalities that exist that may impact my ability to form relationships as well. And then my own well-being matters greatly. Ms. Kim reminded us that this morning, that how I am matters greatly in building healthy relationship as well. And then just acknowledging this great impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on all of our well-being has really been a cost to many of our relationships. So this is just some of the factors that may influence forming those healthy relationships. Ms. Julie, you stuck me, honey. So I'm going to transition briefly to ask you to think about define feedback, because we know that feedback occurs in the context of relationships.
Which ties nicely from what we were just saying when you think about relationships that we have with children, but the importance of our own wellness in this. Because just like Kim stated this morning, our internal state dictates what the internal states and how children show up in the space. So when you talk about, you see the title of this session having to do with feedback, and then you hear all of this couched in relationships. We're really trying to make that clear connection that feedback doesn't happen in a vacuum. Feedback isn't something that a child is going to play solitary play by themselves and they are getting input from the world. Feedback that is effective, I should say feedback in general, relies on participation. It's reciprocal. It's a two-way street. It's an interaction. It's an exchange. It has to have me and you in the same room for us to have any feedback occurring between the two of us.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
And
ma'am.
without that, you don't really have feedback, because we want you to really think about how feedback and relationships are integrated, and really rely on one another. And that stronger relationship is going to show up in a stronger presence of feedback. Whereas some of those other relationships, that feedback may look differently. Just as Kim talked about how we approach with mindset of what some children are in our classrooms, that's going to impact what that circular feedback loop looks like between me and that child. So I really wanted to make sure it's clear. What do I mean when I say feedback? We use that word a whole lot, but I want to make sure that for the purpose of our discussion, we at least have some common ground to jump off of. Or an educated guess. It's a safe space.
And sometimes this feedback may be unsolicited.
Just like your opinion, evaluation.
Opinion, evaluation,
Yep.
Verbal or non-verbal.
There we go.
verbal and nonverbal.
So if I stand up here as someone's making a comment and I look at them like this, that was a tough look, wasn't it? Did you feel it? I was struggling to give it, trying not to laugh at you because I know you, and I'm like, But if I were standing up here like this, what is my body telling her about her response to me?
I want to hear what you have to say about this.
Yeah.
As a teacher, if I give you a grade back on your paper and it had a big fat C at the top of it, but not a whole lot of comments in it, what does that tell you?
She didn't really look at your paper.
Well, maybe they did. Maybe they did look at your paper, but if all they gave you was the C,
No feedback.
what do I do better? What did I do poorly on, or vice versa? So I just want to make sure feedback is communication, and it can be all the ways that you've spoken about, verbal, nonverbal. It can be my eyes. It can be my touch. It's very different if I go like that to a child's arm than like this on their shoulder. They never saw my face, they never heard my voice, but if I'm behind them, that's sending them some sort of feedback, right? But the important part is it's specific because it fills in a gap between what I know right now and where I want to go with my knowing. So if you think about how we finished up our morning session talking about running in the hallway and how we are projecting what is going to happen when we talk to the child, how many times do you see a group of children running down a hallway, walking feet? But what is that? It's feedback, right? That child's running, so I'm saying walking feet. What is the difference, though, between that statement and, John, walk with your hands by your sides?
Now you're telling them what to do with a better explanation of what you mean.
It's specific. And how much more success am I setting up John for by being specific and clear than just saying walking feet? Because for all I know now, this is walking feet, because that's what she just told me I was doing. So we wanted to take just a minute to find someone nearby. It can be your neighbor, it can be your group, just as long as we have enough people to be reciprocal in conversation for a relationship. And I want you to reflect on a time that you received feedback. There's something that stands out to you, and it can be a positive time, it could be a negative time. But we really want to get you to think about, how was that feedback delivered? Was something said to you? Maybe something was not said. Was it helpful? It could be hurtful. And how did you receive that? How did you process that feedback? And we always invite you to turn, talk, share with your partner, and only what you're comfortable sharing about if you have gone into a different headspace with that one.
Yes.
But think about feedback and how you received it and what stood out about it.
So this is an invitation and a moment of connection.
Yeah.
An invitation and a moment of connection.
To connect with a partner.
Demonstrating my musical abilities. Let's take. Oh, we truly feel bad for interrupting your conversation. So if you wanted to take a few seconds to wrap your conversation, that would be fine as well. But if you're ready to join the full group as we process what some of your feedback experiences, that's an invitation as well.
Is there anything that seemed to come up in common or themes that you noticed or something you want to share back out to the larger group?
Well, we was just talking about some of the feedback that like my director give me. You know, like sometimes she gives me good feedback with my lesson plans, for working with everybody one-on-one, but then sometimes I get bad feedback too, and it's like, you know, you didn't see me when I did this, you know, but I did do it right, but you didn't see me, so, yeah, and she can call you out and stuff, but it don't really bother me at all. It's just that she's just doing her job and making sure that everything's getting done right.
May I pose a follow-up question to that?
Yes, ma'am.
I heard two things in there that were interesting, and one was sometimes I get good feedback, and then sometimes it's not good feedback. Tell me more about what makes the feedback good when you call it that.
Just making sure that every child is, like you said, feeling safe in their environment, make sure they're learning. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel good, I guess.
The good feedback.
Yeah.
The good feedback.
The good feedback. The other feedback takes you to a different place.
Yeah.
Let's just acknowledge it. Let's just acknowledge it's real. We're human. And they take us to a different place.
Yes.
It may cause a different emotional response and physiological response in us as well. Thank you, love. Thank you.
Miss Yolita.
Okay, so I have some new children that just enrolled, and one of the kids was sick, and I was concerned because I haven't received, the medical information yet. So when I contacted mom to try and talk to her to find out, exactly what was going on, had this happened in the past, what we need to look for to get him better so he can come back. She thought I was being nosy. And I was like, okay. So because he had been sick for so long, I called the emergency contact, which was his aunt. She didn't know anything about it. Aunt went and picked him up, took him to the emergency room. He was tested for everything that, because we have a high rise of things that's going on. He has a flu and a respiratory infection. Had mom just brought him back, we all could have been exposed to that. So even though mom was upset, thought I was being nosy, aunt took the initiative to listen to what I was saying, my advice, and we were able to get him, on a page, on a point where he's feeling better now.
Wow.
I was hurt when mom was like, I think it's just being nosy. I'm like, well, okay. So I just, took the next step. Because he had been sick so long, so that raises a flag for me. And I have to, not only worry about the other kids, I have to worry about myself. Make sure that I don't get sick, from anything. And I was glad that aunt was willing to listen to me. So that was good feedback when she called me back and told me what he had. And, so he's on the road to recovery now.
Wow.
And you raise an important point that sometimes isn't quite as direct, so we often forget that feedback doesn't have to be explicit. Sometimes it's in response to. So actually, I would say that both examples would be an in response to, but maybe it's just that sometimes it's not quite as in your face. That feedback is also something that happens in response to, which is why it can always not be positive, negative, just depending on our initiative in that moment to be proactive about it, or are we being reactive? Because either way, it's feedback, but it's how we are taking the moment of that power, as Ms. Kim said, to use it for proactive or reactive measures.
And I love how you didn't just stop with her statement of you being nosy. You pushed through that because you had this greater goal, and it was about the well-being of the child and the rest of the children and staff in your care. So you just didn't stop at that statement. You pressed through. Other experiences with feedback. You're in deep conversations now. Don't get quiet on me now.
I will.
Yes,
I was
Miss
talking,
Jamaica.
To my partner back here, I was like, feedback for myself, like when you're getting evaluated, and they say that you are a good people person, you can transition to any classroom and get along with any children or adult. But then they tell you, but that but is always there. You gotta come out of your comfort zone of like, you gotta get out of, I don't like change. I do not like change. Change is not my thing. But like when you picked up and you have to go somewhere totally different, even though I get along with people, it's not my thing of being somewhere different because I'm familiar with what I know. My classroom, my children. But then you have to go into somebody else's and it's like, OMG, my children don't act like this. I mean, keeping it real, changes.
Yes, ma'am.
So you have to adapt, and you like, I'm also a bus monitor. And when you was talking about walking feet, I don't say walking feet. I tell them, and I call them by name, I'll be like, Shaquan, you need to go back to the steps of the bus and come walk to me. So he turns around, he stops at the step, and I said, you need to walk to Miss Shamika. And then he walks to Miss Shamika. See, I don't use just the walking feet. I have to tell him what he needs to do, and he does exactly what I asked him, and we go on to class. So that's how I do the walking feet, because I have to let, even in going to another classroom, I'm like, no, Miss Shamika, don't do that.
Which highlights the piece of clear directions.
Yes.
And why that's important, because without that, it doesn't really tell a child or an adult or anyone in the relationship what it is that needs to be done differently, what you might try. It also comes in forms of suggestions or hints. You're probably most familiar with the idea of scaffolding, which would fit into that example. So rather than just saying, no, pick up the round piece and put it in the round hole, you're just providing some hints and strategies. Which one looks like it might be the same shape to prompt the thinking process so that they are stretching between that what is known now and what we're not knowing just yet. It's also meaningful and individualized. And that's come up in other examples too, as calling out names, being direct with someone so they know that that's who you're addressing. We've had some verbal examples come up. I want to make sure to include this idea though of self and parallel talk, especially because we are in an infant-toddler space in our heads and conceptually with the topic today. Tell me a little bit about self and parallel talk. Bringing back EDU 119, y'all. I'm kidding. Yeah.
Like when some children are playing side by side, they could be talking but not talking to each other. So that was the first one you said. With the self-talk, they kind of like, you know, just talking, but somebody's beside them. With the parallel, I guess it's like when they're talking to, communicating with each other about whatever they may be doing, like playing in a dramatic play or something like that.
Honey, she had quote, the stage is a play, honey. Yes, yes. PJ, we proud of you.
I know. Now, the reason that that's so important is if you think about an infant and toddler space, When we talk about this couched in a relationship and all that happens verbally in a relationship, we're now talking about a little tiny thing that doesn't have all the vocabulary or capacities to explain and talk and communicate in the same way. Which is why it's our job to do all of that talking for them, around them, with them, to them, about them. Infant and toddler teachers are the ones you always know in the grocery store because they're shopping in the produce going, look at the leafy green vegetables.
I'm gonna fall on this
broccoli.
floor.
I think I would like to have broccoli and oranges. And you look around like, where's the kid? And there's nobody with them. Because that's what you get in the habit of doing. But all of that is feedback.
Narrating.
All of it.
Narrating.
You are giving the words to that child about the world. Now, in the context of conscious discipline in relationships, you're giving that child the words to humanity and relationships and empathy and self-regulation and soothing. So think of feedback in that context as the how. So you could do that verbally. You can do it non-verbally. We've talked about that in my crazy look at you, which I apologize for again. But even infants do that back to you. How many times have you seen like a 1-year-old when you try to play with them with something, it's almost like a cat. You're like, that's feedback though, right? I don't want your handy wipes right now, teacher. I want the thing I'm looking at over there.
And think about,
But if I can say something.
oh, you can say a lot of things.
Please.
I work with 1-year-olds, and that feedback, I use nonverbal. And I look, and
The
I
look.
give a look, and I have one friend, he'll see my look, and he'll hurry up and put that back where he got it from.
The look is powerful.
Okay? Now, it's not no, I mean, I'm not asking for anything.
It's your
because he
cue.
knows what he did was not right, and all I have to do is look, and he'll hurry up and put it back where he got it from.
Y'all got your communication worked out. It's your cue. It's you and his cue, are their cue to be a little bit more inclusive.
And then he'll come and give me a hug. Yeah.
It's your cue. But think about the powerful messages we receive from the environment. Think about even when you were entering this space today. Think about spaces that are welcoming, inviting. Think about spaces that are inclusive versus being in spaces that you know are extremely exclusive. Think about the spaces you find yourself in and the cues we get from the environment. Children pick up on those very same cues as well. Young children. This sense of being valued in spaces, welcome in spaces. I wish that as each of you were entering the door today, that Ash and I, although we were getting ready, setting up, we made an effort to take time to greet you, to make sure that you were seen and heard. That's the element of creating a welcoming, inclusive space. So we get a lot of feedback from the environment that we find ourselves in.
That over time, I think we can also start taking for granted because it becomes this internalized thing that we don't even become conscious of. What do you do when you have to go inside of a bank to do something? No funny answers.
You have to make sure you have all your materials together.
Okay, so you get your stuff and you go inside and you look around, but what do you do?
Depends on what you need.
Where do you go?
To the window.
Okay.
Tell them.
To the wall. Nothing.
What'd you say?
We glad you didn't finish it. It's a song Ashley made.
I didn't
It's
even
a song.
hear the comment, so I'm just like,
Oh,
we're gonna roll on.
oh my God. Honey, is that?
We will not finish that.
Oh, that was funny. It's at the lunch.
This ain't my first rodeo either. Don't move on.
Oh, that was precious. We knew exactly where you were headed.
Right.
Pat time, Pat. Oh, no.
That was a great example, though, of exactly what I'm talking about. How do you know to go to the teller? Thought I was going to open that one up, didn't you?
Oh, God.
How do you know to go to the teller? The bank teller. How do you know? Did somebody ever teach you? Like, did you sit down?
With my grandma when I was a kid.
Right.
That's how I know.
Were you ever tested on it? But do you think about it when you go into the bank? You just do, right? Like, do you go into the bank and first, like, dress in a clown outfit and then go do cartwheels before? No, like
I
you.
usually wear a mask and carry a gun.
When Ashley first
Coming for a never mind. I'm not even going
when
there.
Ashley first posed that question, that was the first thing that popped in my mind. Being conscious of how I dress to enter the space.
Yeah. And that's why I threw clown outfit out there too. I kind of wanted to see where that was going to go. But that raises questions, right? If I came up here as your presenter today, but I have it on super short shorts and maybe a shirt that wasn't, as much coverage as what I have on, there's assumptions that you're going to make about my credibility, about my intelligence, about what I do when I leave here, about where I go, where I shop. So all of those things to say, the environment does a whole lot, but eventually it starts getting so ingrained in here that there's a lack of realization that we're doing it. Now, when you were talking about your feedback scenarios amongst yourselves, what makes it effective? What made it good feedback? Now, I know Ashley told us a little bit about her example, but what makes feedback helpful?
We know the butt doesn't. Not doing the butt, but we know the butt doesn't. We know when they give that good, and then that butt negates everything that just was said. We know that inserting that butt does not help. That was lifted.
The conclusion, or maybe like what the scenario started as to how it finished. If it was a good outcome, and if it was able to help assess and give good feedback from everything.
Yes, Mr. Letha, yes.
And I want to make sure,
I think if feedback is personal and detailed so that it helps you to truly see what they're trying to explain to you, and it's on a personal level, I think any feedback is easier to accept and take.
Yeah, being specific and personal. And as part of that relationship, it shows that I'm actually present and paying attention to you.
That's exactly what it is. Constructive rather than destructive. I don't have to say everything. Miss Julia, My mama said, keep some thoughts to yourself, honey. I want to give feedback that's going to honor and build the individual, not tear an individual down.
Even if you have to get negative feedback, it just feels better if it's something that, they've got it detailed enough that they can give you, examples, specific examples.
It's personalized.
So that you can see what they're talking about. When you look at it and you go, oh, okay, yeah, I do see where I did that, or I do see where I could do that better because, So even with negative, it can be done in a way that it doesn't tear you down. It helps you to build on yourself.
Negative can be a positive.
Yes.
Yeah, I was about to say too that it's almost as if this idea that there's good feedback and there's bad feedback, but I think it's really that if feedback is effective, it can be feedback that we don't want to hear, but it doesn't negate its effectiveness. And I want to make sure to connect, especially because of all of this awesome neuroscience brain talk, which I am one of those people. I was geeking out. I love those conversations. To include this piece of metacognition. Good feedback, when you're really intentionally trying to teach or coach or promote, promotes metacognition. Meta, huh? What? What I mean by that is thinking, not just thinking, but thinking about how you think. I'm pausing for a second because you need to digest it if you really think about it. And it's an example of what I mean when I say when you get up and you brush your teeth in the morning, are you really thinking about it? Did you think about it when you got up and you went in the bank and you got in the teller line? No.
She took your window.
Scared, she's afraid.
But if you're
She's
really
afraid of the window, honey.
thinking about your thinking, you've got to be asked the right questions to think about your thinking too. Because if I want to know more about what you're doing, I'm not going to say, what are you doing? I've got to craft a really good question to get you to think about your thinking. What were you comparing as you looked at the photos? What made you think about that? What has happened before that you think that was kind of like to make you think that way? Those deeper pieces of like, not that, yes, I put two blocks on top of each other, but those powerful questions that are like, how did you know if you put 5, it wouldn't fall? And the kids then like, it's encouraging. What you're asking them keeps them going, because otherwise that feedback says, oh, that's cool. We do that in the moment, don't we? We know we do. We don't lie, I do it. Good job. Teacher, look, I made this lion on a piece of paper and I'm so in love with it, it's awesome. That's awesome. Are you finished? Do you want to go put it in the cubby? Yeah, sure. So it's not that it's bad feedback. It's just that you really have to be intentional as an educator to think about what is the outcome that I want to have in this moment. If it's a teachable moment, especially with those conscious discipline concepts we talked about this morning, there's some different ways that you can think about putting that into practice. And a lot of the stuff that we talked about when we say, how does it support children, ties directly into the topics for the day.
Yes. Would be derelict in our responsibility not to leave this space thinking about what feedback may look like to children who may not respond verbally for a variety of different reasons. So we provided you with this handout that we were going to invite you to review later that talked about some strategies for supporting children who may be less verbal or who may not respond verbally for a variety of different reasons. Everything from developmental delays, everything from selective mutism. I remember when my father died at 7, I went through this phase of selective mutism. I did not want to speak. I did not speak, because it was a traumatic experience for me. So understanding that there are some children who require different alternative communication methods that does not rely solely on verbal responses. So think about your visual cues, think about your gestures, your nonverbal language. And the other half of the handout, I've been looking at
Also,
you see we got our little cues going.
There's also parts on the back that are really intentional, some questions to promote you thinking as you go back to your program or home. How can I do this in practice? What are elements in the day right now that are happening where I might not be taking advantage of giving feedback, or even sitting down on the floor and looking around the room at the environment? What kind of messages and feedback is the room sending out? If you really want to be intentional, think about it, plan for it. So even set up a tape recorder nearby to listen to your conversations with children. Sometimes doing that is a whole new eye-opener because we think we do things one way and it might not look like that in reality later. But pieces like that can be really helpful in being intentional about how you set up moments for feedback and use them in an intentional way. So that's on the back.
That's on the back. Our closing activity was going to provide an opportunity to embody feedback. We want to leave you with this spirit of what does feedback look like for young children.
And we won't do this in its full glory.
Yes.
However, I really just want you to think about if all of these things are happening in a positive way in a classroom, and you take yourself and put yourself in the perspective of the child. In that classroom, what is this baby thinking? Or what is that toddler going to feel? If they are couched in healthy relationships and these intentional pieces of feedback that are encouraging and specific are happening, what are they doing? What are they hearing? And inviting you to share something that may surface for you just in the moment as we pack up to head out.
Yes.
What is life like for that baby in that classroom?
They want to have a turn with the bubbles. They want to hold the wand and actually blow the bubbles. And even though they dump it out, you can refill it and teach them how to use the wand properly because it gives them power.
Wow.
And such a simple way to say that baby feels comfortable and safe.